Hello everyone, and welcome back to another art video. This time I'm going to be showing you my process for creating this painting, which is a little bit different than other paintings that I've shown thus far on this channel. This is the first one I've done in many years that was completely with my imagination / memory. I'm not going to be using reference photos for this particular painting, but I am still using a watercolor style within Procreate. I'm still using most of the same brushes, and I am going to be breaking down the brushes and process that I am using as we go along. So let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing that I'm going to be doing is creating a structure sketch. For this one, I'm actually using the chalk brush in Procreate. It is a standard Procreate brush, and it's because I wanted the lines, the structure lines, to be very loose so that I could try to build the details within them. And a structure sketch for me is just deciding where all of the elements of the painting are going to live and how they're going to be positioned. And then I lower the opacity, create a new layer, and on top of that layer, then I start to create the detailed sketch. And that's what I'm doing right now with the peppermint brush, again another Procreate standard brush. And now I can actually focus a little bit more on the details. You know, what are those flowers actually going to look like? What does her hair look like? The plants that are behind her, how am I going to make those look? How am I going to make it all work together? Those are the details that I'm trying to work out with the detailed sketch now. Finally, when I feel happy with the detailed sketch, I'm going to do an all-over wash of color. That's because I want all of this painting to be within a certain tonal range so that it all kind of looks like it fits together. So the wash that I did was a purple color, and I did some basic shadow colors also in purple. Now I'm actually doing something that I have taken a liking to, which is ink lining, as I call it. I am using the syrup brush, again another Procreate standard brush, and I am actually creating more ink-like lines to create a little bit more line weight variance and more structure to the painting. But I don't use I don't use black. For this particular painting, I'm using a very dark purple because, again, pretty much everything in this painting is in the purple tone range. So I'm using a color that will harmonize with the rest of the painting, but still adds some structure and anchoring to the painting. And I love this particular brush because it does change its thickness with the pressure that you apply on the pencil or the stylus. So you apply less pressure and it's going to create a smaller line or a thinner line, and you apply more pressure and it's going to create a thicker line, which is what I mean when I say line weight variance, the variance between thick and thin lines. You'll notice that I'm also creating the ink lines not right on top of the sketch. I'm not following the sketch exactly. I do treat the inking layer a little bit more like a refined sketch, a second refined sketch, if you will. That way you can finally anchor down exactly how you're going to want the painting to look. And I do kind of like the look of the sketch behind the ink line, or behind the ink layer. I think it adds a little bit more of a spontaneous feel to the painting. It also kind of makes it look like it was actually made by human hands rather than by a computer. Now I can finally start adding color, and I almost always start with the focal point of the painting, which in this particular case is going to be her face and like the hair and flowers that are surrounding her face. So I'm going to start with adding color there and then build out. I am using the Soft Flow watercolor brush in a watercolor brush set that I have mentioned several times in my videos already. I will add a link to it in the description box below. And I use that to lay down the base colors as well as lay down the soft shadows. So these are the shadows that aren't like very well defined. They just build a little bit more volume to the various forms within the painting. I use the same brush to do both so that they blend in a little bit more, and it creates more of a wet on wet look that traditional watercolor will give you. Once I'm pretty happy with the initial shadowing, then I will go in and start adding a little bit harder shadows, and I use the Dilute with Fringe brush in the same watercolor set to add the harder, more defined shadows. And this builds up contrast within the piece. I sort of go throughout the same process, again, flip-flopping between the soft wash brush and the dilute with fringe brush to just add more depth to the colors and to add a little bit more contrast. It kind of felt like everything was very flat and washed out until I started building up a little bit more depth of shadows and light within the flowers. And I will do the same throughout the whole painting where I do want the details to actually be. So the colors actually got a little bit darker there because what I did is I felt like the whole piece again was still kind of lacking. So I grouped the layers together and then I duplicated that group so that the colors are a little bit more opaque, they're a little bit more solid. And then I lowered the opacity of that layer so that it still has that watercolor look to it a little bit more. And I usually don't set a layer mode to that duplicated group. I leave it as a normal layer mode. And now probably my favorite part is adding the little shine highlights and details to the piece. I usually add it to the eyes, possibly the cheekbone or the chin or the nose, little spots on the hair, spots on the leaves and the flowers, and then little flyaway hairs I will also draw with a white brush. I'm using the syrup brush again for this. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign the painting and call it good. So I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of the process. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Thank you.